if the PlayStation 6 and Xbox Project Helix launch at $1,000, they predict there could be a 40% drop in 5-year sales.
Welcome to the Weekly Download, the definitive weekly podcast on the video game industry.
Hello. Welcome back to the Weekly Download, brought to you by Big Games Machine. I am your returning host, Tom. And today I am joined by the not returning. I believe this is your first back-to-back appearance.
I think so, yeah.
Yaz, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me again.
I'm very happy to have you. I think I said to you yesterday, you're like the super sub now.
Yeah.
We can bring you on even if there's 20 minutes to go, and we know we're guaranteed a great performance off the bench if needed. Hey, but one day we'll be starting. You know, Alex misses a few too many weeks, or I do, and then all of a sudden the locks have changed and we'll be stuck outside. But rather than talking about being locked outside, let's lock in.
Hey,
to use a young person term, of which I am one, and look at a few stories today. I think we normally tend to cover 3 or 4. I think today we're going to look at 2 in particular, just because I think they're the most. Not more interesting than others, but I think there's a lot to talk about. So the first of which is we are going to be looking at a Bain Co research report, which has a lot of data in it, but the real headline of it is that their surveyed players, the data they got from that, only 21% of those players, when they asked what they were looking for in the next 12 months in terms of games, only 21% were looking at new titles. Yeah, so many people, and I know we've spoken about this morning, so many people in this report much more comfortable with the idea of sticking to what they know, sticking to sequels, which, I mean, Yaz, what are your thoughts on this? Because I think we both are guilty of maybe similar indulgences.
I definitely don't fall within this 21%, though I know many people who do. What is it about games that you're so familiar with and comfy with? It's just enjoyable to play. I think you just identify a good game loop that you like and you get comfy with it and don't try and fix what's not broken. How does the saying go?
Yeah. No, yeah, that works, doesn't it? It's mechanics, it's characters as well. I think that's a big one. And even if that's spin-offs, you know, you're still in the same universe. But I think it's funny to me because when I first saw this, it just made me think that people, I think a lot of players, especially online, always say that we need new experiences. Why no one's trying anything new anymore? And then you look at this data and all I can think is, well, it's kind of your fault that this is happening. And it does make sense from a business perspective, doesn't it? If this is what players are looking for, then of course we're going to get more sequels, more remakes. We're already seeing a lot of publishers really narrow their focus into a few big IPs. And yes, you see this and you kind of think, well, yeah, that's why we're not playing enough original games. And both of us are there like, yeah, that's kind of my fault.
That's not to say that there's no room for innovation within the genres that we like, though, right? So, for example, I love cozy farming games, Stardew Valley, right? But recently I started playing this essay. I don't even know if that's how you say it correctly. And I think that's a really nice twist and take on it. I've seen many sort of pixel art games as well, which I think is great. You know, there's ways to stick within this same genre that you enjoy playing with, but try new things and experiment and switch it up a bit. You know, there is still room for creativity, even though people aren't looking elsewhere for new games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a line, isn't there? I think within this data, if you asked people, are you looking for like the exact same thing, or are you looking for something slightly different? But I guess that's the difficulty, isn't it? I think we've seen a lot of experimentation, or we've always seen that. But you look in the last few years, sometimes we've seen spin-offs. Like I can't recall the name, but the Control spin-off that was entirely different from the main like games that Remedy have made, and that didn't do great. But then, you know, I look elsewhere in this report, and we continue to see a concentration of the players in what we call those forever games, which are, Fortnite, Roblox, GTA Online, whatever GTA Online will evolve to be. So it's really hard for anyone else to step in and get involved. And again, I imagine, and I can't. There's a few games that you play, isn't there, that it's like that takes most of your time, and anything new coming out, you're like, oh, do I try it?
Definitely. Used to play Dota 2, and that was just like every time you log on and play, it's like a new match over and over again. So, once you're in that, it's like, well, why would I switch? Like, I'm just, you got your jam there in essence.
That's, I think I find it really interesting the way you phrase that in terms of, even if you're playing something, you're playing like Dota 2, and that is just one game, but whether it's the gameplay, whether it's things the developers have done, there's ways to ensure that even if they're still in the same game every day, it is very different.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's easier with multiplayer.
Yeah.
Because you can never control what random person on the other side of the world is going to do, which is fantastic most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. But yeah, that's an interesting point you've raised. And I think that kind of takes us, going to try and do a little segue, that kind of takes us to something else from the report, which I wanted to touch on, which is around UGC and sandbox experiences. Obviously, that's the ultimate form of, hey, this is one game, but do what you want with it in a way that not the boring old games that we play are much more rigid in what they allow you to do. But speaking of age, that's where this interesting data has come from, which is that essentially the preference for those kind of experiences. So Roblox, things like Fortnite, Creative, they peak in much younger age groups, and they just continue to decline from that point. So 13 to 17, 32% have the preference for it, 18 to 29, down to 30, down and down we go, 70 to 80, which, hey, shout out our, old gamers in the room. 3%, though, of them wanting UGC. Do you have any relationship with, not to reveal our ages, but where we'd fit in here, potentially? Do you have any relationship with UGC games? Is it something that you really play much of?
I don't, and I think that's because of my association with UGC, Roblox, and in my head I just immediately think that Roblox is catered towards a younger audience. And I don't know if that's perhaps the same view that loads of other people have. Is it too strongly tied to Roblox now?
I think that's a good point. It is. It's probably the biggest in terms of footprint when you think of UGC, and does that perhaps put people off? I also wonder if it's not to like categorize all young people or all old people or all middle people as certain type of players, but I do wonder if there's a degree of, as you grow, you have less desire for new experiences, and it comes back to that first thing we looked at, and more of a desire for fixed games with a certain story, with a start and a finish. I don't know if that's just me sounding really old, but that is kind of where I am. Right. So less of a desire for...
Yeah. I think as people get older as well, they might want to experience more like richer narratives, deeper stories, and that's obviously not something that you're going to find with UGC.
You never know. Hey, I don't know the story of Steal a Brain Rot.
Neither do I, and I don't want to know.
Hang on, how long are we in? We'll just do deep dive now into the narrative value of Steal a Brain Rot. But it feels like fairly predictable data to me. I think it makes total sense, but it's interesting, again, just to see it. I do wonder that the 13 to 17 demographic is the youngest in the survey. I'd be really interested in seeing what that 32% looks like if we go back 4 or 5 years. Because I can't help but feel that it would be like a huge spike to like 40, 50%. Because again, as you said, it's traditionally, you look at UGC in a very young demographic. Apart from GTA stuff, that's not a young demographic at all.
And also, how would the years of COVID affect that too? because more people would be online. Less school time, I guess.
True. And I guess you have to consider how things like that shape how people do engage with content. Is it a case that, I don't know, we can't exactly link the two together, but it is an interesting point. And I continue to find the UGC parts of the industry really interesting, because it's a very much I think for a lot of people on the outside, and I'd probably include us and a lot of other people within the more grown up serious parts of the games industry, and we poo UGC and we forget about it, but we don't really know what. I don't get that side of things, so it's interesting to me to see how. I find it surprising that even in like older age groups, it's still quite high. I thought it would completely drop off. But okay, we'll keep. This is like very data intensive today. We're really just we're delivering percentages. A few other bits from this report, which I also find really interesting, is there's some data around how willing people are to spend money on games, and especially if we're looking at in-game content like digital content, microtransactions, Sims 4 expansions, just a little what we were talking about before we started recording. Just put that in there, no context for anyone else. But that 86% of teenagers, so that 13 to 17 demographic, very happy to spend on in-game elements. Whereas when we get to 50 to 59, that's dropped all the way down to 53%. And then again, my slightly younger, older gamers, 60 to 69, that's down to 36%. Do you take anything from that? Is there anything, I don't know, what are we thinking?
So until I was 16, I didn't have a job, didn't have my own money. So therefore, anything that I wanted, granted I didn't want much, but anything that I did want.
All those Fortnite skins.
More like the one-piece sweets from a sweet shop.
Yeah.
that was
shout
more
out
me.
Penny Sweets.
Yeah, but you'd go to your parents for that, right? Or you'd use birthday money or Christmas money. But it wasn't really money that you earned. At that age, you've got no responsibility of like monitoring money and like ingoings and outgoings, right? There's no bills at that age.
Yeah,
so
I like where this is going.
Yeah, so like money is just it's fun. You just spend it
all on those Robux.
Exactly. When you get older, there's an argument to be made that people do like their collectibles. They have hobbies that they can invest in, and it's their money that they've earned, and they can go away and do it. But also on the flip side, we are in a cost of living crisis. Like, it is a bit of a luxury to invest in games. It's probably just something that's dropped off the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's a really good read on all of that, as much as we joke, but it does make sense. I mean, that reflects my own experience. I don't know what it's like for kids now, but yeah, be like, my birthday and Christmas are very close together, so it'd all kind of come at once, and then it'd be like, right, here's the checklist. Right, we need this one, this one, this one. At that point, there wasn't digital downloads weren't as much of a thing. That makes us sound really old, doesn't it?
It does.
I feel like saying that. Back when we were there, we had DLCs, but we didn't have all these other things. So
do you know what? You reminded me of, oh God, I can't remember the year that Black Ops 2 came out, and I had an Xbox 360 at the time.
13?
Sounds about right. And I remember going to HMV on release day because I'd put a pre-order in, and I got on the bus after college and picked up my little Xbox 360 Black Ops 2 copy, and that's just never going to happen again, is it? It's so, yeah, I really am showing my age there, but
yeah, we're about to have an early life crisis about things like this. I remember when there were manuals. I remember manuals in the cases.
Like little maps.
This is not what Alex and I do. It's this like once a month. We're just like, oh, I remember physical games. That's what this all comes back to.
Yes.
But good memories.
But now that there's not as many physical things to invest in, people are perhaps investing more in the digital side of the games, the DLCs, the cosmetics.
Do you think, something I was thinking about before, and then I kind of drifted on to another point, I think that's a really valid thing, is that if we're looking at what younger players want to spend additional money on, is it new games or is it, new elements of games they're already playing? I think it's very heavily the latter. And I also wonder, we're seeing, again, to come back to what you said before about collectibles and things like that, we're seeing more, are we seeing that decline as we get older? Because these publishers, studios, developers, blah, 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 are getting much better at monetizing outside of games. I know over one shoulder. I've got the Joker from Balatro over one shoulder, and I've got Zelda Lego over the other. So I'm a very good example of the missing percentages in this data. But that's just how you said that before, and I thought that's a really good point. And maybe that is why we're seeing so much more monetization outside of games from especially the bigger studios who are very aware of people like us who are willing to spend, but maybe not on skins or other such things, or CS:GO knives, I believe is. Does Dota have any things like that? Is there any
there was
crazy lotteries or such in there?
There was a battle pass that they had. There's a huge event every year called the International TI, and there used to be way more money in it. We're talking like $18 million for the winning team type thing, like big money in it. But I think they got slashed in half. But there was a battle pass, and there was like a set of cosmetic skins, and then you would buy a battle pass, and when you would upgrade it to a certain level, you'd get one capsule to open, and you'd get one random set in the set of skins.
A little capsule.
So, yeah.
Just those little loot capsules.
Yeah, exactly. And, you maybe get them like one every 10, 20 levels. And then you see people who have got like level 1000 battle passes who have clearly sunk hundreds and hundreds into
just
this
to
to
keep
get
getting them.
So kind of there.
But not.
Disclaimer, I haven't played the game in like 2 years now. It might have moved on.
Anything could have happened. Gloves off now. 2024 hit and it's gloves off. We don't know what could be going on there. We need a Dota 2 correspondent to come in and share some
They're probably
facts.
still doing some sort of monetization.
Oh, I'm sure they will be. They all have to somehow.
Yeah.
They all have to somehow. I think the last thing this is a really good report. We'll have links to it in the description. So I recommend going and having a read of it because there's so much here and we can't cover everything. Otherwise, we'd be here for hours. And unfortunately, we don't have hours. But the last thing I picked that I wanted to talk about is, and I feel like I say every week, it's AI. It's all about AI is back in the room. Did it ever leave? I don't think it's left in about a year and a half. But the report also talks about essentially how comfortable players are with the presence of AI in games. We look at platforms like Steam, they have the disclosures now, or some developers are more than willing to openly come out and talk about it. So among players aged 13 to 17, again, that youngest demographic, 59% feel more comfortable with AI in games this year. So that's compared to last year. So that's not a point of data on its own. That's feeling more optimistic, better, less. They care less about it being used in games than they did a year ago. And another 33% say their feelings haven't changed. So overwhelmingly, in that youngest group, a clear, just, I don't say disregard in a negative way, but a clear disregard for being concerned about its use.
An acceptance of it is how I'm interpreting it.
An acceptance. This is why you're here, because you're always coming with best words. Yeah, an acceptance. I think this is interesting because this is the group that's going to form the future of the consumer, the player base, isn't it? So to me, I look at this and I think, well, if that's where that group is, you are going to see a shift eventually. Because
it kind of feels inevitable, doesn't it?
Do you think?
At some point, yeah, I think so, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is interesting. And then, but I don't think we can just say, oh, the bloody teenagers. It's always the teenagers causing trouble, because across the entire demographic, so I believe it's around 5,000 people this survey was produced from, 42% across the board say they're more comfortable with AI use in the industry than they were a year ago. fewer than 1 in 7 are less comfortable. So it might be less substantial across the board, but it does feel very clearly there's a lot more willingness to, as you said, I don't know why I keep trying to change what you said, because you've already said the perfect word. There is more acceptance, isn't there? I mean, I know you're not a developer or you don't run a publisher, Yaz, but what do you think leaderships of companies will be aware of these kind of things? They'll have to be. So how do you think this does shape what they do now, what they do going forward? Not to put you on the spot, but...
Yeah, this is a hard one, right? Because this section of the report actually surprised me a bit, because I always see really negative feedback to AI online, right? There's a lot of community backlash. So I'm surprised that the percentages are as high as they are. You know, if I had done this survey, I'd be like, not comfortable.
Do you think this is I always try and remove my thoughts on it. You know, I'm fairly similar to you, but I always try and be as objective as I can. And I do wonder if this, it reminds me a bit of what we've seen with the physical disc like blowout in the last month or two, especially with Sony's decision earlier in the year, where I do think there's a comparison between these two. You've got this very negative, this online element that is very anti a decision or anti the movement of an element of the industry, such as the use of AI. Very vocal, very present online. The overall critical opinion with media and content creators to a lesser extent is negative. But out in the wider world, most people don't, well, not most people, only 42% at the moment, but a good chunk of people don't really care. And that's not to say that in a negative way. That's just a reality. And this kind of says that. So again, you can't really argue with it when that's the data you're seeing.
But like I said earlier,
but I am
right?
surprised as well.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I think, is this part of people just being like, it's inevitable, it's going to happen at some point, whatever? I wonder if that makes up part of the percentage.
Maybe. I guess maybe a degree of, I imagine there's a range from enthusiastic to apathetic towards it. And a lot of that comes back to what you said about people just saying, okay, it's here. I can't really do much about it, so I'm not going to kick up a fuss.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we'll, not to finish, but I feel like we're a bit downcast now. We've had some good data and then we're just there like, but we'll move on from this story, but really good report. We'll link it, recommend reading the full thing. There's a lot of interesting stuff on monetization as well, that we've just not got time to cover. But I'd really recommend giving that full report a look. You know what? Have a tea, have a coffee, have a glass of water, give it a read. It's a good report. We're going to talk about another report now. Don't start booing. I can hear the boos. No more reports. We want something fun. I think this is fun, interesting stuff from, I'd say, friend of the podcast, because we use a lot of their reports. Ampere Analysis. They've released a new report, which the big headline from it is that if the PlayStation 6 and Xbox Project Helix launch at $1,000, which is being rumored, we're seeing a lot of price increases this generation that are getting to that point. I think PS5 Pro $900 now. If they were to launch at that price, they predict there could be a 40% drop in 5-year sales for both systems compared to their predecessors, which neither of us are financial analysts. But that, I don't know about you, Yaz, but that does not sound good to me. It's a big drop.
No, it doesn't sound good, but I also think it's to be expected. Because, I mean, Valve's Steam Machine, they've just released that. That's what's $1,000, right? Hardware prices are quite crazy right now and will probably continue to go up and up and up. And I believe at the moment, consoles are kind of sold at a loss anyway, right?
Yeah, I think I recall, I think when Nintendo earlier in the year, they bumped the price $50. And I can't remember who it was from Nintendo, but one of their senior spokespeople did come out and say we're barely making, we're maybe making like $3 a unit with this extra, like with the extra cost. Most of that's going on hardware. So if they're not running at a loss, they're running at minuscule profits.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I cede the room back to you now. I apologize.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. And obviously, if people aren't spending money on games, like for me, for example, if I buy a £10 game and that's probably it for me, I don't spend money on extras. So if most people are like me, for example, they're not going to be making enough money on games. So they therefore have to bump up the price of the consoles. So like, for example, I assume that if people spend money in Fortnite, Xbox is going to get a cut from that. And most people who play Fortnite, I think the average was like $80 to $100 per person. So that's what the equivalent of like 2 games bought. This obviously doesn't give them a lot of profit, but I think it's still a really interesting note. So I think that hardware mixed with lack of in-game spending is probably going to lead to them raising the cost of the console.
Yeah, I think I won't keep speaking about hardware because I'm kind of tired of talking about rising component costs. So I think just like you, I'll mention it briefly and then be like, just look. We don't need to tell you what's going on with RAM, again, tariffs, supply chain issues, with other things that because of the industry but are happening to it.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back to the Switch 2 increased in price, Xbox, multiple price increases, PlayStation, multiple price increases, and we're already seeing those increases see hardware sales for these consoles drop.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you in terms of, I think you have to look and think, if you're releasing this, and it's something that Ampere to discuss, they've got some ideas of how to fix this. I think you have to launch these systems at a loss. To me, if $1,000 is what's needed to make money, I think you'll really struggle to shift hardware at that price. To me, I've had every PlayStation system at some point, like console hardware, not handhelds. Sorry to the PlayStation, the PSP and the PS Vita. But the idea of paying $1,000 for a new PlayStation, which I don't even know if I'll notice the difference.
That's true.
How many games this generation are 60 FPS, a 4K? To me, I look and I think, I don't know at which point we need more than that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, give me 60 FPS 1080p and I'm fine. Yeah. The idea of paying $1,000 for something which is a marginal upgrade is never going to happen. And I would consider myself a day one adopter of systems, but it's silly at those kind of prices. And you look 40%, that's crazy. But it's feasible if you price people out of the market, isn't it? I just can't. I see a lot of people not buying because they don't really see the value in doing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if they've got a perfectly working PS4 that they've just sunk hundreds of dollars into it, why would they then suddenly get rid of it for this one? Is it perhaps too soon to release them?
Well, we'll segue because that's a great point that you're at. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but we'll use it. We'll be like, no, that's great. That's one of Ampere in this report. I've got a few ideas to basically be like, okay, we're not going to tell you what to do, but here's some things you could do. And one of them is delaying the release of these new systems. A lot of rumors. It looks like 2028 is kind of like the last time the last period these would come out in. It could be 2027. But yeah, this argument for Ampere is that wait a bit longer. Do we really need new hardware at the moment? Are many games pushing to be on new hardware? I'd probably say no. Wait a few years. Hopefully the price of these components that you want to use will decline. You'll still be delivering good performance because they're still quite new components. But you can get value out of the base you've already got, which, Xbox is much smaller than PlayStation at this point, but they're still both huge install bases. So I don't know if you work for Ampere Analysis on the side or what, but the point that you made is their first suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with them. Yeah.
Just going to co-sign that. He has agrees with him. There we go. End of the episode.
Full stop. Good night.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you later. But if they don't do that, other ideas. If we're looking at, okay, we do want to release either next year, 27 or 2028, and it's something we have already discussed, subsidize the systems. If they cost $950 to produce, take the losses and sell them at $800, sell them at $850, and then it's a case of finding other ways to monetize. Or I know Xbox have a very good, well, I'm never going to call it any loan or financing thing good inherently, but they have systems in place where you can buy hardware from Xbox with a credit plan. I imagine that's something that regardless of where these systems launch at price point wise, you'll see a lot more of that. And then my other thought was about leasing hardware. I wonder if we'll see more of that. I don't know if have you got any thoughts on the idea of leasing hardware? Is that something you'd consider? Were you to need your PlayStation 6 fixed?
I mean, I've never been a PlayStation, but I had the PS2 and that's it. So I don't need a fix, but I don't know. It's risky. It's risky, isn't it? I'm not sure executives or higher ups would want to take the risk of taking the loss on consoles, because then it's like, we have to do something to make the money back, or it's GG. Like, and leasing hardware, does that bring up the whole conversation of ownership again? I don't know.
It does.
It's a risky one.
I hadn't even thought about that, but that is part of a bigger conversation, isn't it? Around, you don't own your games, you don't own your console.
That's a great article title right there. You don't own your games, you don't own your console. What do we own?
What do we own? You own the discs, not the disc. Yeah, you own the discs that are empty of any actual data. Yeah. That's a real treat. I mean, we think that the subsidies, yes, not subsidiaries, are unlikely. What I think is even more unlikely is the last idea that Ampere had, which was abandon the power, the ARMS-esque power race that we continue to see between Xbox and Sony, and then PC players are off doing strange experiments in the background. Stop worrying about having the best hardware. Stop worrying about ray tracing and 800 frames per second, all these other things, and look towards the Nintendo way of unique hardware, hybrid systems, maybe Xbox. I can never see Sony doing this. I feel like this would wound Sony's pride to release a Switch 2S compromise. As much as I love the Switch systems, it's a compromise. And I can't see Sony doing that.
No. I mean, I'll say I don't even think that Nintendo needed to bring out the Switch 2, to be honest. Maybe some people will disagree with me, but you're right. The pride is way too high. You've always got to be the industry leader. We've always got to be on top of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Valve Steam Machine, Switch 2. All right, next up, PlayStation and Xbox. Like, it just probably is just going to be a natural move for them. But I don't disagree with you.
I do see. I know Xbox is doing its own like licensed handheld things, isn't it? Where it like there's the ROG Ally. I think they've got like an Xbox variant of that. I think Sony, we've seen things around them doing a handheld. That feels like a more likely move. But then again, you kind of run into the same problems, I imagine, because how powerful are these? If Sony have a handheld, how powerful is it compared to a PS5? If you compromise too much, it's pointless. If you don't compromise enough, it's too expensive. Get that that will really help everyone at Sony. Just put that on the whiteboard. Morning, everyone. Got bad news. They got bad news. But yeah, if we're looking at this story as a whole, I think it's likely we see very expensive hardware, because I don't see how, like, looking at the PS5 Pro, top of the range, and that's $900. In a few years' time, we're going to see that become $700, and then the PlayStation 6 takes that top spot. But then even then, it's not a huge gap, is it? But I don't know.
No, I still wouldn't pay £700 for a console. I'm sorry. Like, that's just so much.
No, that's
money.
fair enough. I mean, when I got my PS5 Pro, I managed to get it in the launch month. It was 20% off. And then I sold my PS5. So I think I ended up getting the Pro. I think it was about $300. So I was like, it's a lot, but I don't mind future-proofing to a degree. But the idea of going out there, I think people went with the Switch 2, people were saying $429 is so expensive. It's the best value of the lot now.
It is the best value,
really.
yeah.
It's a powerful little device. It's not going to give you, the best frame rates and the best hair and all those other parts, but for the price, it looks like very good value. And I imagine Nintendo will see things like this and they'll be clapping their hands. I think they'll be delighted because they're increasingly becoming a budget option, even though it's still nearly $500, which feels crazy.
It's not 4 digits, let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, not yet. Give it time. And we see the next Nintendo, the Switch 3. It's got 3 screens. That's why it's so expensive. They're all OLED. They're all OLED. But I think we'll... do you have any closing thoughts on today's stories, Yaz? Or any other things you'd like to share?
No, really interesting data. I highly recommend people go away and read the reports and see what they make of it for themselves.
See, that's the intelligent mind of just go out there and form your own opinions. Don't listen to us. You can skip the 36, 37 minutes we've been recording. Get to this bit. Just read the articles. Form your own takes. Entirely disagree with us. And leave us alone. No, please don't do that. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please do leave a like, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the reports, as Yaz have said. Both very interesting. Highly recommend giving them a read. If you are interested in more of our thoughts, though, as well as a few other stories which we haven't been able to cover today, you can check that all out in our weekly download newsletter, which is penned by me. So I can, if you don't like it, you know where to come. You know who to come and have a go at. So I'm being as transparent as possible. But that's available via Substack and LinkedIn. There'll be links to that in the description. And yes, thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. I feel like I need to give you like a little plaque which says 2 weeks in a row. Congrats. Try and like Photoshop something in here. So wait for the balloons to come up behind you. But no, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you to everyone for listening. We'll see you all at the same time again next week, and enjoy the rest of your days.
See you later.